Welcome to Mavens of Data. This week we're speaking with Injae Park, Power BI consultant and speaker. This was an incredibly popular episode where Injae shared about streamlining your Power BI workflow with AI, building better dashboards, and prototyping faster. I hope you enjoy this episode. Injae, thank you so much for joining. So happy to have you here. For those who maybe do not know you, could you give us a quick rundown of your background?
So my name's Injae Park. I am a Microsoft MVP in Power BI, and I've been an MVP for 3 years, well, 2.5 right now. And my, I guess, claim to fame is that I was a finalist in the Power BI World Championship. I have mostly, if you know me, you might know me from either YouTube or LinkedIn. And I'm really just here because I'm like this a Power BI developer who I would describe myself as someone who's actually more interested in social media, YouTube and LinkedIn, than anything else. I just happen to know a lot about Power BI, so that's kind of what I talk about.
So that's awesome. And I'll be honest, I'm not a Power BI person, so I didn't know that Power BI had a world championship. But for people who are out there that are maybe thinking about like, hey, that'd be a great way for me to, work on my portfolio or something cool to put on my resume that I just participated. Like, can you tell us a little bit about that?
So I'm going to say that generally speaking, it's like there's a whole bunch of different challenges. It's like I think I started my LinkedIn, it's like career like 3 years ago doing Mavens analytics challenges, but the Microsoft World Championship is basically something that they do. I think it's twice a year, one in the US and one in Europe. And it's just like a challenge, it's like if you win, it's like the actual qualification rounds, 4 people get to go to, it's like either Europe, I think it's Vienna this year, and it was Vegas in the States in April, and compete live on stage. And that was really scary because it was 800 people that I was making a Power BI report in front of, and the time that we get is 20 minutes. Obviously, you can't make a report in 20 minutes. We were just building the front end in 20 minutes. But that was, honestly, even thinking about it now still gives me a little bit of heart palpitations because I'm like, oh my God, building reports in front of 10 people is a little stressful. Building reports in front of 800 is something else.
Well, and do they tell you what like the type of use case is going to be before? Or are they like, nothing, here's a data set, 20 minutes, go?
Oh my God, can you imagine? No, it's not like that. So you get the data sets a week in advance, and you
Okay.
build all of the, it's like backend, you build all of the, it's like items that you need, and you're going to just bring it all together, do the formatting live on stage. And it's like that was really great. I see from the chat that some people will have it's like were there, and that's really awesome. I will definitely say that what a trip. It's like, and that was like my first time in the States as well. So that was like a real.
Yeah, that's crazy. And then, so I assume that was before all of the LLM revolution and using AI to be able to help you create the front end of your dashboard. And I've, you've mentioned that you're also using it to help you with your wireframe. So how does your workflow look different now? How are you using it to help you? What does that all look like?
Of course. So what I want to do right now is I want to share my screen, and
Sure.
let's see if this works. Okay, so I have a PowerPoint presentation. I'm not going to make it full screen, but some of the things I want to talk about is that I do a lot of this stuff. I do a lot of challenges and stuff, and I've always kind of gravitated towards doing challenges because as a Power BI consultant, what I do a lot is, so when I worked as a technical lead in a software house, was making POC reports, doing discovery with clients, and actually figuring out what they want. Do they want to work with us? What do we want to make? And that is a very specific kind of situation because, it's like at the end of a discovery session, you might not choose to go ahead, and that's fine, right? But a good way to increase your chances of actually, it's like, scoring a contract was being able to really get the clients and the stakeholders to understand what you're trying to make for them. And with that in mind, Something that I found that was really, really similar to that kind of action was making POC reports, which to me was essentially the same as making, it's like a report for a challenge. So essentially, with that in mind, I was trying to figure out how can I make this part of my life easier. It's like you're like a consultant, you're doing POCs, and a POC might be something that you make in like a month or 2 months, right? Just like proof of concept reports, it's like we're gonna build it on not mock data set, like a it's like an initial reports. Usually, it's like if a client needs PowerBI work from a consultancy, they need like a suite of reports usually to it's like fulfill their needs. But no one really wants to it's like commit 100% with people that they don't it's like they haven't worked with. So POC is proof of concept. So it's like a proof of concept reports. It's like just to let you from Yash asked that question in the chat. And the idea is that if you have it's like a new client, then one of the good ways to it's like start working with them in the long term is to do just one report, and that would be like a proof of concept in my opinion. So I've always found that doing a proof of concept report is very similar to doing challenges, and I've also found that this is a place where AI can really help because when you're doing like it's like proof of concept reports for it's like stakeholders and you're in discovery, you're not going to have access to their data, most likely not. I mean, you might have some access, and it's like a big part of discovery is identifying it's like the holes in their data. But after you do all of that it's like good stuff, all of that consulting stuff, a lot of what you'll end up with is something like this, which is like a wireframe. A wireframe where you've it's like understood the client's needs, understood how you're going to bring business value with the report, but then what's the report actually going to look like? And one thing that I have not seen that many people discuss is just the possibility of throwing this into AI to make mock-ups, to make it's like visual representations of what that might look like. This is one of them. And here is the literal prompt that I used for ChatGPT. For you guys to know, this was ChatGPT 4.0, so this was a couple of months ago that I tried to do this. But the main thing about the mockup, of course, is that it's very simple. You can see that the mockup is just this one column repeated 4 times. It's like it's like ticket type calls, chats, emails, and escalations, because it's just a dashboard that's looking at a fake IT ticket resolution dashboard. So very, very simple. I'm just throwing this into ChatGPT without too much, like how do you say, without much more than this is a mock-up of a dashboard. Please make me a high fidelity mock-up. You can get, it's like something like this or something like this. Now, this isn't a perfect solution, but I think that's okay. Let's see if I can.
It's wireframe.
Okay. Hang on. This is a little bit awkward because I am sharing something else and I do not see it. So I'm going to share my screen once again. Let's see if we can get this to work. Okay, fantastic. Can you guys see this? Right. So when you have something like this and you want ChatGPT to just make an image, it's not going to give you the same output every time, but sometimes it can give you, it's like some really nice things. And I've always thought that this was really amazing. For a couple of minutes on ChatGPT to create something that visually could represent something similar to what you actually want to make is, it's like insane. This is definitely not good enough to, it's like go to the clients and say that, this is exactly what you're going to give. But it might be good to, it's like spark the discussion of, what, now that we can actually see this with my, it's like visually, maybe it doesn't really make sense to do this. Maybe there are any changes that we want to make. And that is an incredibly important part of the discovery process. It's like, especially, when building reports, because you want to get the buy-in and sign off from stakeholders before you start building the actual report. Now, I say that, but I say that with a caveat as well, because some of the things that you can do is there are, it's like small things that you can do, like ChatGPT, for example, has the ability to put images into their prompts, and that can give, it's like additional context. So you say, hey, I've got this wireframe, I've got this background. and I've got this mock-up that you made for me. Can you blend those things together? And it doesn't it's not like 100% hit, but it is really, really much better than you'd expect from a couple of minutes online. So genuinely, if you haven't tried this out yet in Discovery, it's like definitely do, because it really speeds up the, it's like visual understanding of your stakeholders of what you're trying to build. That is definitely one really interesting thing. But of course, you can go really far with this. You can, it's like instead of having like a really small prompt, you can go super deep and say, you know what, this is all of the different dimensions. This is a, humongous prompt, as you can see. And the reality is it doesn't do that much better. It's like it's a little better, but it's not like so crazy much better that it's like it's worth learning how to prompt so well. It's more about in my opinion, the ability to start prompting, and then you'll start getting it's like the really good mockups, which can be an important part. But let's talk about creating an actual, it's like proof of concept, a high fidelity report inside of Power BI. And if you start from somewhere like this, one thing that you could do is you could, it's like try to generate data for, it's like a report. As long as you have the wireframe, you should be able to say that, it's inside of the wireframe, most of the information about what kind of KPI cards you want to show, what kind of charts you want to show, are there. Otherwise, it's not going to be such a complete wireframe. And if you have that and you ask ChatGPT to create something like this, then what this prompt is just make me a mock data set to replicate this report inside Power BI. And that's actually good enough to create CSVs of, the actual data set. Let me see if I have a better version of the prompts. I have done this prompt many times. Sometimes you get better results, sometimes you don't. Because ChatGPT is an LLM, the responses you get will vary. And sometimes you get some really great it's like responses where it gives you like all of the required metrics to pull off it's like all of the visuals, as well as the suggested table type, which has a whole bunch of it's like different columns, as well as even a dimensional structure. And these are things that it can do really nicely. Like it's created, it's like a whole bunch of different records for me, and it's just asking me if I can generate this, and it has. All of this data is really good. It it gives me the information that I need to make the data model, and I can probably go ahead and ask it to make all of the DAX measures. So I'm rushing ahead, but I'm going to just talk about the DAX measures, and then I'm going to stop for a sec. So one thing that I want to point out here is this is a proof of concept. This is not using client data. I never recommend putting client data into an AI. At least it's as long as it's not an in-house, it's like a platform. But we have a wireframe. We created some data, and realistically, the it's like prompt for creating data is very just I want a mock data set, and it's going to give you just one table, and you might have to modify that yourself into it's like what kind of data model you'd like to have, and then you can ask it to create some DAX measures because it knows already what metrics you need to have in order to it's like make these visualizations. So once you have it's like this idea, you can just ask it to make all of the DAX measures. And one thing that I think is really cool is that because we have Tyndall and we have, it's like DAX query view, we can ask, it's like ChatGPT to create one script to generate all of the measures that we can just copy and paste directly into, it's like DAX query view right here. And that will allow us to have a whole bunch of different measures created automatically. And it's like this is kind of like the strength of AI. There are it's like different ways to really speed up the process of looking at it. But I will also say that this is not looking at the business logic. It's creating mock data. It's what it's doing and what it's enabling is to create a Power BI interface of what you could deliver to the client at the end of your project with the client's data. You're not trying to diminish, it's like what you can do in the front end, but I found that as a Power BI consultant, a lot of the things that I want to show clients is hard. How do you show drill downs, drill throughs? Like how, Kristen, as a data scientist, like when someone asks you for, just like an ABC analysis or something like that, or you want to, it's like find the statistical, significance of something, and then you're trying to explain to them, and then you're like, these are business people. They don't know what p-value is. Like you're not trying to explain that to them. So it's always better to just show people visually. And I found that, this is not labor intensive. This specific report is something that I created in I want to say sorry, that's not right. Okay, so I don't actually have the report up. Let me see if I can sort of bring it up in just a sec. But this specific report is something that took me, I want to say, like a day to generate it's like an example of, and
I've lost way more than a day just creating a synthetic data set before, when you have to like set up, randomness and write code so that I guess a lot of people might do it in Excel, but either way, when you're thinking about what you want just that random data to look like, and you have to make all those decisions on your own, like that alone can take a lot of time. Like I saw your synthetic data set and was like, oh, like I've lost hours of my life trying to do that thing that he just did in 15 seconds.
Yeah, and it's like, for things like this, it's fantastic. Like it's so good at doing, it's like small one, it's like big table, it's a kind of data sets that you can, it's like make a couple of visuals with. And for that, it's magic. ChatGPT, Claude, it's like, and I use Gemini. Okay, so I'm going to try to answer the question in the chat. So John asks, it'd be interesting to test these results in ChatGPT, Claude, side by side. And I will say this, I have spent literally hundreds of hours testing, it's like ChatGPT versus Claude versus Gemini. And I can't tell you that one is better than the other. The simple answer is because I rotate the high tier over the different models like once each month. So I try to it's like get a taste for every single it's like model, and I find myself coming back to ChatGPT quite often. But Claude is better for it's like making SVGs for sure, and Claude is more it's like thorough in its chain of thought. DeepSeek, for that 1 week that it came out and was really like better than everyone else, is quite good, but not anymore unless you pay for it. And it's like Gemini. Gemini is also really great. I would say, in my opinion, Gemini is one of the it's like better ones for DAX. But they're all really similar because what you want to do in a lot of cases is understand that the amount of tokens that you have. So, it's like when you're giving a prompt to, it's like ChatGPT, it takes your text and then splits them into multiple different things. So if you want to do something that is token heading, so you're, it's like basically inside of the prompt giving hundreds and thousands of characters, then it's a lot harder for, it's like ChatGPT to, it's like deal with all of that, or any of the AIs. So I'm going to say that right now I am pretty agnostic in terms of which one is better for any Power BI development. I'll say that there's a lot of really interesting things happening with MCPs, and Claude is probably where you go for that. So that has the edge. But for the regular person to just ask things, ChatGPT or possibly Copilot.
Mm-hmm. I use Copilot and Claude, actually. I just switched from GPT-5 to Claude, and I feel like it's better for code, but I'm not writing it for DAX and stuff like that. I'm writing in Python.
Yeah, like, so what I use Claude for is, okay, so a side project that I'm doing unrelated to Power BI is I'm trying to create a phone game. And it's just for fun, it's like I mean, this is the AI time. I see hundreds of people, making stuff, and I'm like, I know nothing about game development. And I will say that Gemini was able to create the prototype of the game in on the first go. To ChatGPT and Claude were not able to do it. Like literally hundreds of iterations to get it to work. Lovable is pretty good. Cursor AI is also pretty good. But Gemini is it's like really great at web applications for that. Not related to Power BI or that stuff. But
Well, and how have you found, so when you're talking about applying, like using AI for building this, like what have you found in terms of using AI specifically for DAX code, and like what sort of issues do you see there when you use it?
so look, using ChatGPT for DAX code, if it's in one big table, is or has almost zero problems. And this is actually one of the things that it's like I think is very important. The more complex your model is, the more problems ChatGPT will have with it. Now there are caveats. You can give context of your data model to ChatGPT. We're just going to call AI ChatGPT because we're here right now. But when you're giving ChatGPT, it's like a request to make DAX, the first thing that you'll find is that it makes no sense for your data model. So some things that you can do is you can take screenshots of your it's like DAX model and send that to it's like ChatGPT. That actually works decently well. So it's like if you have like a data model, you can just take a screenshot of this and send it in. There is also ways to get the .bin file from Tabular Editor, or it's like an external tool which will have the metadata. There's also a way to get the PBIP file, so the it's like text-based, it's like DevOps version of the report. But as soon as you start doing things like that, what happens is that you're going to run into the errors that I was talking about when you have too much information in your prompts. That once you have so much information in your prompts, ChatGPT is going to have a hard time dealing with it. So if you're realistically, it's like if you can show that the relationships that exist inside a couple of tables, that might be enough for the DAX to improve drastically. But when it boils down to it, ChatGPT has issues on even things like this, right? Like, let's see this one. So unless I very specifically specify that this is the syntax of DAX query view, it doesn't always get it right. So, to here, this is fine. There have been times when I, it's like prompted this and, it's like just give me the piece DAX and one piece of code for DAX query view. And then it tries to put the table name into square brackets or things like that. Or there's a lot of protected words like, string or integer or whatever, because those are, set functions inside of the DAX language, which ChatGPT doesn't know about. So, it's like it gets a whole bunch of things wrong all the time. And the problem with that is that if you go to DAX query view, oh gosh, many screens. Sorry. So when you go to DAX query view and you get something that has an error, what happens when you try to update the model? It just doesn't load. So, so you have to actually go into, it's like your measures and see, oh, you know what? It's got the table name wrong. And because of that, it's like the measures did not compute into, it's like our data model, which makes sense. But it's also 2 months ago, that wasn't the case. 2 months ago, it would just load all the measures in here. So AI is a moving target, but Power BI, sometimes people forget Power BI is also a moving target. It doesn't behave the way that it did a couple months ago, especially for features like DAX query view, which is still technically agreed, as well as Tyndall and PBIP.
All right. And then, so how do you think about using this, or how has it helped you for the more visual part? So we saw You got the, wireframe, which somebody would use to sort of communicate to a stakeholder that, like, hey, this is, sort of what I'm planning on generating. And then you go into POC mode and you're doing some smaller increment to sort of also demonstrate exactly what it is you're going to be generating. How has it helped you with creating the visuals?
So I'm going to show you one thing that I think is pretty awesome. So many people who follow me on LinkedIn or YouTube will probably know that I am a huge advocate of SVGs. And when it comes to, okay, so this specifically Lovable is probably the best for, but this is this is one of the early stages of a report that I was building for the qualifying round for the European Power BI World Championships. I didn't get in, got an honorable mention, but it's fine. But one of the things that I think is really nice here is that you see these cards. These cards are all SVGs. These cards are all SVGs that was it's like built with it's like ChatGPT or Lovable or Claude. I honestly was kind of jumping between them because it was having a lot of issues. But one of the things that I've found really, really useful is roast this dashboard for the intended audience, right? And the intended audience, this is directly from, it's like the actual competition. So, it's like this is the audience that you're building for. And this is incredible. This is amazing that, it's like I don't see enough people talking about it because you can, it's like go, it's like here and it just starts to talk about, oh, it's like it's too high level, there's not enough story, it's like the boxes are just filler, blah, 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 blah. And it's really great because it gives so much real feedback. And because it's a proof of concept report, it's not like there's an NDA on it or anything. I can just it's like this is a competition report. I can post it into it's like ChatGPT and just ask it for help, and it can give me like a grade here, and it can give me information about what to do next. So I made some changes. I it's like added a whole bunch of it's like additional stuff to it, and then as a regional overview page, how can I make this better? And then, it's like it can give me more information about, it's like what's working, what's not working, and things like that. Now, this is something that's possibly people have tried. If you haven't, please try. This is awesome. Like, I think that this is like one of the basic things that you can, it's like ask AI for help with because the general rule of thumb that I found for Power BI developments in terms of using AI is that complex things are too difficult for like AI to do well. Simple things, and this might not seem super simple, but really what you're asking it to do is just it's like take a quick look and give me surface level information. It's only surface level. It's not going to give you like a business logic like issues with your code or anything. But on a surface level, is this going to be useful for the intended audience? And I think that's it's like really valuable in terms of like just in terms of it's like how we can use AI. I always think of it's like this one quote from it's like this one Polish lady that I saw it's like that went really viral, and it was like I want to use AI to do my work, not to take my work. And I think that's really the case with it's like how you can use it's like AI as a Power BI developer. There's a lot of small steps that we do in our work that we can it's like ask ChatGPT to think about. And here I ask, give me a wireframe or mockup that takes all of your changes into account, and it gives me something else that actually looks very similar to it's like what I have, and it's just like just trying to do some more things. You can even give it GIFs and things like that so that you can show different interactivity and different stuff to it, and it will keep going with more like stuff. I think it's good. I don't think it's going to replace. I don't think it's good enough for like say a junior to learn everything that you could probably learn from a senior instead. But it's definitely something, and hopefully we'll get there.
This is awesome. And I also love how your prompt was to roast your dashboard, because I also find that sometimes you don't get enough critical feedback back from the AI if you don't, like, you're telling it like really give it to me, and it gives it to you. And then somebody else asked in the chat just about like how long it takes to make a dashboard. So like obviously you're an expert, but do you have a sense for how long it maybe takes you to do a quick POC, and then maybe somebody who's like not quite as versed but pretty proficient, how long are they thinking about working on a dashboard? And of course, I don't even know how you answer that, because you can spend forever thinking about colors and layout and all that stuff, but do you have a general idea?
So I'm gonna say this, right? A Power BI report is a building block of, it's a house made of many different blocks, right? And I think Matthew answers it pretty well. It's like in the comments that really depends on how complex you want to do it. There are, it's like tree houses and there are mansions, right? Like it really depends on the scope of your project. But when it comes down to it, I think the difference between time is really how do you know about all of the different steps that you need to take? Like when it comes to color coding, do you know about it's like the client's needs for it's like color coding? Do they have like a brand guide that you have to follow? Oh, they don't have a brand guide. Do you know about coolers.co that can generate it's like a nice color gradient for you to use in your colors? Does it mean is there something like and there's like a whole bunch of different, it's like resources that can help you with color. Do you know about color contrast? Oh yeah, Matthew just put in the colors.co into it's like the chat. Do you know about it's like the different resources where you can get free icons and stuff? Do you already have different measures in place that can help you do? Okay, so here you can see that we have plus, it's like and minuses, and these are basically conditional formatting, it's like measures. I have these measures already. So what I do is I've got, like ChatGPT can generate these measures for me as well. And and it has them and it's really great. So, it's like I can say if delta, it's like current year minus past year is greater than zero or is equal to zero or is less than zero, green, transparent, light red, etc. It's fine. Like it works really well. But sometimes it won't output that. And if you have a template of humans like DAX and you give it to ChatGPT and say, can you incorporate this kind of conditional formatting into the measures? If it's simple enough, it can do that. I have, like I have a stack of, it's like DAX measures and, a stack of templates that I think most, it's like senior Power BI developers should already have. And, I think having that equates to experience, right? Like
Yep.
having resources to help you build equates to experience. Okay, Kristen, are we allowed to plug here?
What?
Are we allowed to plug?
Oh yeah, go right ahead.
Okay, so yeah, so I just wanted to mention this specific report is the first report in my online classroom that it's like people could take make. And generally, it's like the actual video content for this is 2 hours, but people tell me that they make this in like 5 or 6 hours, right? It's a walkthrough, so it's not you making it yourself. You're, it's like copying the prompt here, and it's like learning to use in ChatGPT. But generally, if you know exactly what you're doing, you could make something like this in a day. However, the caveat is that one, AI does not respond the way that you expect it to every single time. So if AI is on an off day, for example, right, then it's like you might not get the measures that you need, or it's like maybe the data it's like set that it gives you has not enough variance. So all of these values are just the same across every single it's like value on the y-axis. So it's like it really depends on it's like not just how good the AI is on that specific day, but it also depends on do you have the prompts, or do you have to kind of, it's like spend a couple of minutes, to re-prompting to get the exact output that you want? And those are tremendous changes. I will tell you that from this SVG down to this SVG was about 4 hours of prompting on and off. It doesn't, it's like, and I don't mean like 4 hours of, constantly, it's like prompting, but it's just like, these SVGs are like 200 rows long. Waiting for that output is like 5 minutes. So in that 4 hours where I was probably just working on other things, and then, oh, I see that it's finished, I'm going to test it. If it doesn't work, I'll, throw in a different prompt. That I could have probably, if I knew, the actual words to use inside of the prompt, I could have probably done that in 2 prompts. And it's like AI seems to respond to the language that you use very, very specifically. And if you wanted to tell ChatGPT to take square flags and turn them into circle flags inside of an SVG, finds that really hard to do. If you ask it to explain the steps to make hard-coded flags into base64, into circles, into something that you can throw into SVGs, it can do all of those individual steps, but it can't do just, it's like the overarching. Yeah, exactly. It can't do the whole thing in one go. And that's like the biggest lesson that I found.
That was a lot. I'm trying to figure out where to go from here. Right. So you've got your squares, has trouble making it into circles. Are there other ways in which, like, the visualization, like when it gives you a wireframe out or whatever, do you always feel like that's something probably better than you would have come up with on your own? Do you feel like you're saving time, or do you ever see it doing things that maybe aren't best practice? Like, do you think that for somebody who's really new, that this is going to really elevate their ability to follow best practices in visualization, and that it seems to always sort of take that into account?
So that's such a good question, Kirsten, because the truth is that I don't think ChatGPT is the best in visualizations. I think it's fast. I think it's great for, for a lot of people, right? I'd say, it's like somewhere between a junior and mid-level person, it's fine. But what's really, really good at what it's really good at doing? It's really good at taking examples of other visualizations and trying to incorporate that. So something that you can do is, let's say that I like this report. Hell yeah. But I think that I want to make this report not for IT service tickets, not for calls, chats, emails, and escalations, but I want it to be about US, let's say US electronic sales, right? And you can get somewhere with this, but this is the output that I made with this as the base, asking ChatGPT. It's like, and you can actually see that a whole bunch of the, it's like visualizations, a whole bunch of the different metrics, even the color coding is very much the same. I'm just reusing elements. And when it comes down to it, ChatGPT was not able to make something like this for me. But this is literally keep the horizontal stuff and I made it sideways. I don't think it's like the worst thing in the world, but I do think that AI is getting better. I think that if you're it's like very serious about making it's like good visualizations, the core thing is to remember that reports at the end of the day are being made for business value, to make money or to save money. That's a direct quote from PowerBI tips. Check them out on YouTube if you haven't. They're really great. But when it comes down to, it's like reports making value, we're saving, it's like money or time or resources or efforts. And when it comes down to that, saving effort, I think is the key to a good report. When you look at this, you should, and there's the 330-300 rule, and it's like in 3 seconds you should know what you're looking at. In 30 seconds you should have all of the high level information that you need, and in 300 seconds you should have the deep level of information that you need. And I think that it's really important to follow a lot of different UI UX patterns. There's all of these different laws, like Higgs law, following the F or Z, it's a pattern of how people read, which is also not universal, because Western society reads left to right, but then some societies read right to left and stuff. Whole bunch of different things to think about. Does ChatGPT know all of these? Probably it could spit them out for you, but it's probably not taking everything into account. There is no perfect way of making visualizations, because at the end of the day, some people will just want a table, and that's perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm. And they want to be able to download it.
Oh yeah. So having just a table of data that people can just export, maybe that's what you need, and there's nothing wrong with that. But of course, it's like making business value is not a one-size-fit-all kind of dashboard. It's about listening to your stakeholder. And a lot of people we are very successful in selling templates, especially companies that do Power BI embedded, and that's fantastic. But in my experience, when it comes to mid to large to enterprise level businesses, they always even departments need different things, and I think it's great.
Yeah. Well, so do you feel like your role has already changed, or I know you're a consultant, but for somebody who's, maybe working in corporate, how do you think the analyst role is going to change, and should they be focusing on something different given how much the workflow is going to change, or the speed of the workflow is going to change?
So I'm gonna say, okay, so let's start with a platitude. The platitude is, it's like something that if you're on LinkedIn, you follow Power BI, you've heard this before, which is that data is changing. Dashboards are dead. We have AI, and AI can talk to your data. But I don't think that's necessarily true, because a dashboard is supposed to give you insight within 3 seconds, within 30 seconds. If you have an AI and you want to ask it 10 questions that you would need to answer, if you gave those 10 questions to a BI developer, and you had a report that could answer those questions in 5 seconds every day, obviously the 5 seconds is just better than you having to copy and paste a prompt, wait for the prompts to load, for the AI to make the correct connections. Sure, but that doesn't mean that AI isn't important. I think that even some of the few things that I've shown here, making different visualizations, and making different proof of concepts and things like that. If you are a consultancy, and all of the other consultancies now with their discoveries are making these kind of skeleton reports that are visually appealing to the stakeholder, you're going to start losing business. That is a true fact. And do I see a lot of consultancies doing this? No, it's just very new on the market and stuff. I do think that when you're trying to, the whole world of consulting is really crazy, but when you're trying to, engage with new clients, it's always about trying to prove that you can do what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And, so that's why in the first couple of seconds, and this is something I heard from Power BI, expert Greg Nash down in Australia, which is in consulting, the first thing that you have to say in the first 10 seconds of meeting a new client is, "Hi, I have done this project before," or something similar. And because I have experience in it, I can help you with this, right? And if you don't have that, credibility, 90% of the time that you're talking with the client, they'll be thinking, "Can you do this?" So show them you can do this already. And that's going to, that's going to change the game.
Oh my God, that's fantastic advice, actually. Just like the framing, just to think about how the elevator pitch goes. It's like just get it right up front. I have done this. I'm not
Hmm.
gonna do this. And then so it's probably time to head over to Q&A because I know we have a ton of questions and I want to make sure that we can get to them. Um, if people want to find and follow you, what is the best way for them to do that?
All right, good friends. If you go to LinkedIn and you look for Injae Park, that's me. Same face, right? So yeah, like you can find me here. I also have a YouTube channel. If I can just bring out my YouTube channel, give me 1 quick second. So here we go. That's me as well. Power BI Park. Help me get to 50,000. So and if not, it's all good. I really hope that some of my content reaches you and helps you out. That's really cool.
All right, everyone go follow him on YouTube so we can get him up to 50,000. Questions. Are you ready to hop into questions?
Oh yeah, please questions.
Okay. Perfect. So I don't know how these things go together, but we're gonna go here
Okay,
anyways.
so
Could you
sorry.
use Plotly Studio to brainstorm reports?
Oh yeah. So this is a question that I am actually, it's a kind of working slash researching myself right now. And thank you for asking. So, Kristen, do you know about Plotly Studio?
So I use Plotly in R and Python. I'm not a Power BI person. That's why I had no, but yes, interactive charts, love it.
Yeah. So Plotly Studio is Plotly's answer to AI. And it's like, you give it a sample data set, you can, ask some prompts, and it will start creating dashboards for you. Of course, using R. And it's phenomenal in the sense that if we were talking about AI replacing juniors, Plotly Studio is the one to watch out for because, it's like when it comes down to making simple charts, simple X is Y, it's like kind of, analysis, it's like things that aren't too, it's like crazy. It really means that, it's like Plotly Studio is really amazing. I am flabbergasted at how good it is and how fast it's improving. Um, Plotly Studio is very good for brainstorming reports, absolutely 100%. Lovable, also really good. ChatGPT, also really good. So those are the three that I would use probably in, it's like any case. Yeah.
All right, awesome. Bob is asking, with your POC per ChatGPT synthetic data, if you get the client's business, would you take their data and try to fit into the POC, like rename their columns, or would you start from scratch?
So this is really a what if question. So I know that, it's like it depends is kind of like a,
Mhm.
a non-answer. And so I'll try to actually answer this. If the data model is really close to, it's like something that you can do, then it might be possible. But when it comes down to actually making the reports, you have to think about, it's like what are the X and Y columns that you're using inside of the visuals? What's going inside of the measures? Does it make sense to do this? Because in a lot of cases, when you create a high fidelity mockup and you're not using JSON themes, you are going to have to reformat it from scratch. And that is a hard truth to swallow. But if you prepare for this in advance, so when you're building a report, you're using it's like theme colors, you have your JSON theme that is being adjusted. So in the reports that I showed, I was using four, say main colors for the different regions. If you have that directly implemented inside of your JSON theme and you can reapply that very quickly, then yes. But if you're, it's like just going to plug in data, we probably know that it's not so easy.
All right. Bob has asked, do you use or advise clients to use third-party PBI visuals?
Hi, Bob.
influencers.
So I would love to use third-party visuals. InfoRiver, Zebra BI, and it's like there's a whole bunch of others. It's like I really like the PowerVis. It's like third-party apps, as well as the one that holds the closest place to my heart is of course Dene, which is where I started. It's like creating like these custom visuals. I personally use SVGs because SVGs is most integrated directly into Power BI native visuals. But if a client can find the value of using InfoRiver or Zebra BI, especially for things like, it's like IDCS and they want to do it quick and they're, it's like okay to, it's like to pay all of the costs, then absolutely. I will personally say that in my, it's like 7, 8 years as a consultant, I have never had a client who has, like the actual stakeholders in the department that I've been working with have had access to Zebra BI and InfoRiver, and they didn't care that much. It's probably because, it's like InfoRiver and Zebra BI specifically are very, very good for financial things. And, it's like as a BI developer, finance has been not, I mean, a couple of projects, but not like all the projects for me.
Okay. And Stefan has asked, when you work for a client as a consultant, are you allowed to put your data in ChatGPT, including semantic model, DAX measures, or is this often forbidden?
Stefan, thank you so much for asking this, because this is, I mentioned this earlier, but please check with your IT security team what you can and cannot put in. I find that this happens all the time where people are trying to put in like data or measures or things like that. And the reality is you might not be allowed to do that. It's like the business logic behind how you calculate, it's like CAGR, for example, is probably completely okay because compound annual growth rate is a is a financial it's like measurement that's
Widely
completely
known.
fine, right? Widely known. But if is there some kind of very specific way that your company is calculating like profit, and is it different from it's like somewhere else, then yes, the business logic behind that could be something that's construed as classified information. So that's why I typically say POCs. Don't get ChatGPT, it's like to write you highly confidential business logic. That's you did not hear it here first, but I'm telling it again. Definitely don't do that. And also, data is even worse. Look, some things like column headers might be okay. Companies have sales, companies have profits, companies have units. But like if you want to say, it's like a company has a specific column that has confidential data in it, that's really hard to say. It's like, let's say there is, it's like is validated against, it's like policy X3 or something like that. That sounds confidential. I don't know what policy X3 is, but it sounds important. So I'm gonna say, please be careful. It's like I'm doing this. This is really important, and it's like please don't break your company's data security.
Right. Could you imagine if somebody was able to like figure out how many customers you actually have in a certain segment?
Oh my God! Like,
right. And it's like that's that's the type of thing is something that could give somebody else competitive edge is like.
Did you know that in South Korea, apparently, like one of the Samsung employees was using AI. I think it was ChatGPT. It was like a year or two ago, and like it just leaked online because ChatGPT does this thing where you can prompt ChatGPT to write a poem. You keep prompting it. Write a poem, 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 100 times, 1,000 times, 10 million times. And what it will start doing is it will start printing out people's questions. And that was the way that it's like secure data has been leaked from ChatGPT. This is known, and people are doing it. Please do not put, it's like confidential information on ChatGPT or anywhere else online. You've taken If you worked at a corporation, you've taken this degree. Okay, look, I don't want this to be a startup. Just be careful.
Mm-hmm. No, and I mean, even if you're talking about this happening a year ago, I remember a year ago I was at a conference, an AI conference, and one of the talks was on security. So I started like following the security people around because I was building an LLM powered app for a healthcare consultancy in Azure. And we had all these questions around like, how secure is this really? If I use the Azure OpenAI instance, is that different from using the traditional OpenAI instance? And, and really like no one, if you went to the website, of course, it would tell you that it wasn't going to use your data for training, but like, what does that mean? Like tell me, and I really I couldn't get to a place where I felt like things were nailed down. And as we're looking now, we see that GPT-5 handles things way differently than 4.0 did. If you ask it a healthcare question, it's going to say that like this is PII. Whereas if you asked something a while ago, if you asked, is Kristen Kerr sober, it would have told you yes, like a couple months ago. And now it's like, oh, that's personal health information I can't tell you about. Like we are changing very quickly, but we're also not there yet. So yes, you
Yeah.
absolutely still need to be super duper careful. And that's my soapbox moment.
No, this is super valid.
Yep. Do you recommend using Microsoft Copilot in Excel or Power BI to work with business data? What are the benefits or limitations you've seen in practice?
So I'm going to put it out there that Microsoft Copilot gets a bad rap because it's hard to differentiate which Copilot we're talking about. Excel has a Copilot, Outlook has a Copilot, Power BI has a Copilot. Probably your mouse bar is going to have Copilot too. But one of the things that I think is really important is that when it comes to say Microsoft Copilot in Excel and in Power BI, there are many things I can talk about. So in Copilot and Excel, very, very recently, I think even this week, last week, they announced the Copilot function where you can call Copilot to generate literally data inside of your cells. Amazing. But it can run 100 cells at a time. It's not it seems it's like that would make sense because it needs to send data, receive data, etc., and it takes time. And I'm going to tell you that in businesses, people work with hundreds of thousands of lines of data. Like, it's like I'm getting copilots to fill in 10 of those, 100 of those, usually isn't going to move the needle super much, right? Like, I just don't think that's the case. But when it comes to Power BI, and look, you know what? There's definitely more places that Copilot exists in Excel, and I don't really have the expertise to speak on that, but I can speak about Copilot in Power BI. Copilot and Power BI, some of the features are still lagging behind, but not by that much. You see that feature that I showed you of ChatGPT being able to generate 10, 12 different like DAX measures in one go. Hopefully when Copilot comes to like DAX query view, you'll be able to do things like that as well. When it comes to terms of it's like Copilot in Power BI service, you've already got a whole bunch of different things like data agents inside Fabric. You've got it's like Power BI Copilot on the service where you're going to basically be able to ask questions to your different reports. You've got Copilot as an addendum to your Power BI reports, and you can ask questions there. And I'm going to say that the business value can be huge. I am it's like a little bit more skeptical towards, it's like exactly how useful it will be, because the questions that people are, it's like asking should be answered by the Power BI report, in my opinion. But of course, no report is omnipotent. If you have a question, maybe the Copilot can point you towards a different report directly, and that's really useful. I really have to say that I think the same rule that I was talking about as Power BI development using AI applies. Small things, fantastic. Big things, big questions, bit harder. If you ask Copilot in Power BI, tell me what's important about the sales of this region last week. Doesn't know what important is. Just like I think training your end users is it's like just in prompting is also very important.
All right, and we only have time for one more question. As a data analyst, I work with Power BI and Power Automate to build end-to-end solutions. With new technologies emerging, it's hard to keep up with both. Do you recommend specializing in one area, or is it better to maintain skills across both?
Hey, Kristen. So this is a name that I recognize from LinkedIn all the time. Okay, so Kristen, I'm just going to speak directly to you. When it comes down to it, I was also in that position. So I want to say back in 2020, I was doing SQL, Power BI, I was doing Power Automates, it was like Power Apps, Canvas apps, and model-driven apps, both of them. I was, I was that guy. I was wearing many hats. I was always still doing Power BI the most because it was, they were always driving the needle most in my department. And I eventually decided to specialize in Power BI. But that's not like a professional reason that I didn't. I just liked doing Power BI way more than the other stuff. And don't get me wrong, I'm still very happy to do it's like SQL. I'm still very happy to check out Power Automate and all the good things. But I'm gonna put it out there that these are different skill sets, and when you're deciding how you want to prioritize technologies in your career path, you really have to think about what your end game is. When I started making YouTube videos three years ago, I literally started before I started making the YouTube videos, I literally went to my boss at the time and I said, hey, you know what? I want to become a Microsoft MVP. I think I can do it. I think I have no problems in doing it. I see all these people, posting on LinkedIn. I'm going to start posting on LinkedIn. I'm going to start making YouTube videos. And that's probably when I decided to jump all into Power BI. My specialization was not just Power BI. My specialization was stakeholder management, dealing with Power BI work as a technical lead, being able to move the needle in those discovery sessions and talk to new clients, talk to old clients, talk to people about projects, act as an architect if I needed to, and that was a progression path for me. I thought I honestly thought that I would still be doing that until now. You don't need Power Automate to be doing that as well, but you might need Power Automate if in the future you want to become more of a Power Platform, like a full stack Power Platform person, or maybe Fabric is the destination that you want to go to because Microsoft is pushing that. They're making a very big bets on Fabric, and maybe that's not a bad decision either. It's just you can choose to go with a specific technology, of course. You can choose to have flexibility with your technologies and decide later whether you want to stay flexible. But the pros and cons of that is, of course, just you'll be able to learn more about a single technology than multiple at a time. But I will always say, stay with the one that interests you. Stay with the one that you can actually work with immediately. If you're working with both, stay with both. I don't think there's a problem with that. But if you're not working with Power Automate for another year, then it's going to be hard to keep up. And that's the truth. Do you have time to do it? I didn't. And I haven't used Power Automate in 4 years now.
It goes fast. I remember learning Adobe Analytics in a training and using it only a little. And then 6 months later, something else finally came up that required it. And I was like, oh, I have to learn this all over again. I don't even know. Awesome. So that is all the time that we have. Thank you so much, Injae, for joining. This was so informative and awesome. I learned a ton and I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks, Kristen. Thanks for joining, everyone. It was really great.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week. See you soon.